So I am going to be comparing these two Republic fighter tanks. This one released in 2017 and it has set number 75182. And when it released, it had a retail price of $24, 4 minifigures, and 302 pieces. And this one is the most recent one. It released in 2022 and it has set number 75342. And when it released, it had a retail price of $40. And that one has 6 minifigures and 262 pieces. So, off the bat, that one I feel like has a better price. It has more pieces, and I feel like for the price, you get a better value. Just because I feel like $40 is a bit much for that one. Plus, it does have less pieces. And while price per piece isn't everything, because a lot of sets use bigger pieces, I would still say that one is a better price. But both of these sets are now retired. That one did retire relatively recently, so you can still pick one up for about $60. But if you want that one, it's going to cost you about $91. But first up, let's compare the minifigures. So for the figures, I think it's pretty obvious which minifigure selection is better. And that would have to be the 2022 one, for multiple reasons. Number one, more figures. That's always a plus. The set does cost more, but even adjusting for a price difference, this is a lot of figures for $40. While I really like the Clone Gunner and the Ayla Secura, having more droids than clones in a clone set is pretty annoying. And plus, while I like the Clone Gunner, I just think that those 3 clone troopers are just way more interesting. And while I do think that the Ayla Secura is a much more interesting figure, that's just an excellent Mace Windu. It has great printing on its torso and legs, and even excellent arm printing. And both sets do include 2 battle droids each, which I guess aren't bad. But, like I said, I think it's pretty obvious which minifigure selection is better. They both do have cannons, but because that one has a spring-loaded shooter, it kind of restricts the movement a lot. But because this one just has a stud shooter, you can move it way more. And they both can fire, they just have different firing mechanisms. This one just has a simple spring-loaded shooter. That one does have the stud shooter. And while I'm not really a fan of either, I think that it's easier to display this one just because you can easily remove the actual missile, and it doesn't look that bad. But on this one, even with the actual stud shooter, I don't think it looks too bad. And they both do have these antennas, and I have to say that I do much prefer how these ones are connected, because on the 2022 one, they're just attached by simple studs, so they can get knocked off very easily, but that one is actually attached by clips, so it's way more sturdy. Now for the back. I kind of prefer this one, just because it is bigger, so that there's a lot more area to work with. But there isn't really anything that you're meant to put there, but I guess you could like jam a figure in there, or something. But I'm not a huge fan of when you open it, there's that massive gap for the pilot. And because this one is smaller, it couldn't fit an actual ramp in the back, so that one just has a simple crate with some extra studs for the stud shooter. But I think I kind of prefer that one, even though I'm not a huge fan of those anti-studs. Now for this whole front section, I definitely prefer this, just because having this giant beer belly just doesn't really look that good. It is a pretty big piece with a bunch of stickers on it. You can't actually open it up to put a figure in there, but that's not entirely accurate. But that's just being nitpicky. Now for the detailing in the front, I do kind of like how this one has a lot more detail, but most of that is accomplished just by the stickers. And I'm not a huge fan of how many stickers there are in the set. So I do kind of like how they were able to still add a bunch of detail just with some simple bricks. So I do kind of prefer that one. And both of them have the Republic logos right there, and that one is a lot smaller. But instead, this piece is actually a sticker, and that one is actually a build. But I don't really prefer one over the other. And they both actually have hatches at the top, and I kind of prefer this one, but only the actual hatch, because that one does have that nice little thing around it, so it looks a lot more clean. And I'm not a huge fan of how that one actually looks. But because it is super clean, it is way harder to actually open compared to this one where you can just easily grab it. But for the actual interior, I prefer this one. Because on the 2022 one, I feel like it's a bit bland. There's only that one control panel. And plus, the figure can't actually fully go down with the hatch closed, which is pretty annoying not having them to be able to go into the actual ship. Which this is why I kind of prefer this one, because I feel like it looks a lot better in there. And that one does also have the pretty standard control panel, but I do like how you're actually able to fit the figure fully in there. You can just put them in just like this. And if you want them actually peeking out, there is a little clip right there for them to grab onto. Just like that. And as you might have noticed, this one is so much taller, which isn't accurate. And if you're actually curious, this one is the accurate scaling and shaping and size, which, that doesn't fully determine whether or not a build is good. Like, just because it's the accurate size doesn't mean it looks good. But I think I really like this build. And at the bottom, both of them do actually have wheels. And the wheels don't really work very well on this one. They don't actually really turn much. It probably works better on a carpet or something. But on this one, the wheels actually roll. And like I mentioned earlier, this one, the whole front can come off. And there's a lot of space in there, so you could fit a couple figures. But you can't do that on the 2017 one. So, which one do I personally prefer? It kind of goes either way, just because the minifigure selection on the 2022 Republic Fighter tank is far superior, but I'm not a huge fan of the builds, and while the minifigure selection on the 2017 Republic Fighter tank isn't bad, I really like both of those figures. It should have at least come with another clone trooper, but I do prefer the actual build on this one, just because I think it looks better. It's more accurate. But which one would I recommend that you pick up? I think it's pretty clear. It has to be this one. Just because the figures are way better. And as I'm filming this video, because the set did recently retire, you can still find some for about the retail price.